Joanne, not her real name, gave evidence to the inquiry. She was abused as a teenager by a chaplain in the Benedictine church and says she told senior members of the clergy who did nothing.
How did you feel? I know it must have been a mix of emotions, but
guilt, shame, fear, isolation, confusion, pain, suicidal thoughts. What devastated me is decades later, I'd been to a headmaster, I'd been to the abbot, and nothing was done. And one by one, they lied.
The government will establish an independent inquiry panel of experts.
The then Home Secretary Theresa May launched the inquiry 8 years ago into institutional cover-ups of abuse. It had a bad start. 3 chairs resigned amid accusations of establishment connections. But the inquiry did at times strike at the heart of power.
Did you have any suspicions about him at all?
Former Liberal leader David Steele admitted failing to pass on allegations against MP Cyril Smith and subsequently resigned from the Lords. Even MI5 was implicated for not pursuing allegations against a Tory MP who worked for Margaret Thatcher.
I believe the service took a very narrow view and didn't pursue that.
I swear by Almighty God.
And archbishops from the Catholic and Anglican Church were told their institutions turned a blind eye to decades of abuse.
there are shocking stories of abuse and failures on the 458 pages of this report. And what the victims want, who told those stories, most of all, is for mandatory reporting to be implemented. That is, if someone suspects child abuse, that they are obliged by law to report it to the police.
In its final report, the inquiry delivered 3 central recommendations: the much-wanted mandatory reporting, a child protection authority to oversee institutions, and the creation of a financial redress scheme.
What is your message to the new Prime Minister when they pick up this report? What's the key thing they need to do?
The commitment we want from them is to make the welfare of children in this respect of child sexual abuse, and indeed others they may wish to include, an absolute priority.
The Catholic and Anglican churches have apologised for their failings, but the proposed conditions for mandatory reporting are limited to things such as someone actually confessing to abuse or being abused.
It's proposing criminal offences in relation to a very narrow set of situations, but the vast majority of the situations that the inquiry actually saw in evidence where there was a failure to report would not be subject to that criminal penalty, and that's our concern.
Survivors like Joanne relived their past to safeguard children of the future. It's up to the government now to ensure that that courage is rewarded. Jason Farrell, Sky News.